I themed the coaster, I themed the entrance, and now all we have left is the stuff in the middle. In today's episode, we finish the cliffside, the ski lift station, and fully theme our brand new drop tower. Alright everyone, welcome back to episode 7 of Planet Coaster 2, here in our extremely high budget German theme park. My name is Lucius, or Luck, whichever one works. And I really appreciate the support I've gotten over the last few videos. It seems like people are really liking the series, and I feel pretty motivated to hop in here. So without any further ado, let's get on with our plans for this episode. So just continuing from last time, I did end up figuring out what we're going to do with this station, and I decided to put it here on this little pedestal here. Someone did recommend to place the station underneath the Achilles landing, but there wasn't enough space for it to make sense. Even if I did try to fit it in here, I'd have to angle it towards the direction I want it to go and raise it up high enough to where it doesn't interfere with the path. So I couldn't really figure it out there, but it did make sense here. I experimented with placing it over the road here and further back in here, but it just didn't make sense. On peep level, even though that's a pretty big structure, it kind of follows like the flow of the area, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't really fit in. Whereas there, it does follow the same kind of flow, but it's blocking that, which we don't want. So I'm going to rearrange some of the buildings over here in a little bit. But first, that means that this whole area is situated. And that also means I figured out what exactly this area is going to look like. So you see I've kind of worked in a path here. And I'm pretty excited to get this area done. So I'm going to do that first before we head over here. And yeah, I'll just check in with you in a bit. Okay, so check-in number 1, I've done a little bit of work. Actually, it was kind of a lot. But the cabins are in the sort of stilted, elevated cabins, and I guess geographically it does make sense, like in a kind of riverbed valley. I guess lodging in this type of environment would be on stilts, because this area would be prone to flooding. So it kind of makes sense a little bit. Anyways, I haven't added the clutter pieces yet, so no banners going across or potted plants or light poles yet, but some stuff is in here. So I'll start down here. The newest is this kind of guest services building. So it's another restroom. It's got a restroom block, a changing room, drying room, and guest services stand. So anything you could ever need as a guest is available here. Moving on to this elevated cabin here, we have Eisbach Essentials, and this is the Splash Emporium stand. Basically, you know, where you get your inflatable thing for the Eisbach. Kind of makes sense here, right? Moving along, just trying to make these buildings actually useful. So for here, they're used for their shade. Other than that, they're just here for decoration. Except for these buildings, they kind of work as like a path, because as you'll notice, there's a sign here that says Achilles Landing, and we can take this path up this way, through the building, and up to the Achilles Landing. I've moved the tables from here, so now it's like a proper path, and you can head up here now. And then conversely, if we just go this way, we see, okay, lower Eisbach this way. And this brings you down to this level. So I thought that was pretty neat to have an extra way down. Next to it, some more drinking fountains. And then here is something that I'm going to make another of, which is elevator access. So this building, the structure is, we just pretend, you see it goes underground here. We're just going to imagine that it's connected to the Achilles Landing here through that tunnel. And then you could go in here and take the elevator up to this level, so you don't have to go around and do all that stuff. and there's a sign up here to reflect that as well. So I've done a little bit of like retaining wall work here, but no landscaping, no rock work yet. So that's why the cliffs look a bit silly. I figured I'd show you the buildings first before I work on this section, and do this all together before we head across. So I'll work on this and then check in again real quick. So a few things I've added. One, the sign advertising, the beer tours. Another thing I added was this grate, and these are going to be at the bottom of every kind of incline, so it's like the water is proper irrigation channels, something like that for each of the landings. And where does all this water drain off to? This fountain over here. I know it looks kind of weird because it's like a blending of architectural styles. Like this is a bit Italian. I just built what I think looks good. One detail that I added that I did notice while at the parks is that anytime there was a water feature of some kind, the stone or whatever was holding it was darker towards the water level. So you can see I've clearly made a line here. It's not that noticeable, but it's a small thing, and I may adjust it based on where the water hits once I add the rock and the water into this fountain area. But I tried to divide the materials into sections so that we could simulate having like the water staining and whatnot. And that's over here as well, just darker. This is probably going to be covered by rock, so I didn't bother here. But this lower part's darker. You see, it's like slightly darker. This is darker. Yeah, so that's kind of where this is at. So just like this, now I'm just waiting on rock work. So I'll do that at the end. But now, enough stalling. I have to convince you guys that putting the station here was a good idea. So here we go. Alright, well, slight change of plans. I guess I wasn't recording me working on the station, so it is time-lapse time. Right now, I figured I would just show you me theming these drop towers. And apologies in advance if you guys hear noises in the background. There's like a thunderstorm going on, and I've been trying to wait it out, but it doesn't seem like it's letting up. So maybe I'll edit it out in post, or we can just ignore it. But yeah, moving on. Working on some drop towers, and the first thing you'll notice is, well, that there's two of them. And this is something I had always planned, because you look at your large scale parks, your Cedar Point or your Islands of Adventure, anything like that, these type of drop towers, like this specific shot tower model, I think it's what it's called, I don't know, the one that can rapidly accelerate you upwards with the counterbalance thing. These drop tower attractions are pretty low capacity, so they generally have several towers. Like Cedar Point has 3, Islands of Adventure has 2, on the Doctor Doom one, right? So this is supposed to be a high capacity park, so I kind of thought it was a no-brainer to add a second tower and connect them structurally, because it just looks cooler. I guess that solves 2 problems. So first, the capacity, and then second, when you theme a park after something like Epic Universe, right, you run into the same issues as Epic Universe, which is, well, what's the main problem that everyone has with Epic Universe right now? Besides the lack of shade, it's the lack of attractions. And that's just because it's a new park. You're not going to open a park with like 20 rides in each area, right? It's not feasible. It's too expensive. That's something you build up over years. So in order to add another attraction without adding another attraction, I just added a second tower. So it's technically one attraction, but the 2 towers have different sequences of, I guess, events that happen on them, right? Ride sequences. They have 2 different ride sequences. One is more mild and one's more intense. So It's kind of like two attractions. You need to experience both if you are at the park. I think that's like a universal thing to do. That's a very universal thing to do. And then they could definitely advertise it as two attractions. But anyway, onto the theming of the drop towers. You notice one is blue and one is like normal wood colored, I guess. These two drop towers are themed to the Hatchet series by Gary Paulson. And I feel like that's a pretty popular series, so it's not too obscure, right? I feel like any American who's between the age of 20 and 30 has probably heard of this series. I think it's pretty popular. But anyways, it follows the story of a young boy. I think he's 13. His name's Brian, and he visits his father for a summer, who lives in a very remote area of Canada. And it's so remote that it's only accessible via like a two-seater airplane or something like that. And during his flight to visit his father, the plane ends up going down, and then he survives the crash, but then he has to survive living in the wilderness until he can be rescued. And I don't know, it's a pretty cool concept for a story, and I enjoyed it a lot growing up. So thought I'd reference it. It's another one of those things that I immediately thought of when I was building this area. Similarly to the Assassin's Creed 3 theme, because they're both in a similar setting, right? Lots of cabins and stuff for the frontier. It just makes sense. Okay, it made sense in my head anyway. So the tower on the right is themed to the first book, Hatchet, and the tower on the left is themed to the third book, which is called Brian's Winter. And in the story, the third book is it's kind of like an alternate reality to the first book. So at the end of the first book, spoilers, but he does get rescued. And in the third book, it's exploring the idea of what if he didn't get rescued? How would he survive in the winter, in the Canadian winter? And that brings on a whole new set of challenges and obstacles that he has to adjust to. And I think that's a far more compelling sequel than what the actual sequel is, the second book. And we don't talk about that one. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't like that one, and I'm included. I don't like that one as much as this one. So, I also felt that the kind of ice tower was pretty interesting, much more interesting than a second regular looking tower. So I thought I'd dress it up with the over-the-top theming and stuff, and try to make it look like it makes sense, even though it's the only cold thing in this entire park so far. Anyway, I don't know what the future holds, but I guess I do know what the future holds. But yeah, you see me messing with this support structure here, kind of making it look like the sides are bleeding onto each other. One side's super cold and the other side is super warm. There's like a top. At the top of the right tower, there's like a smoke signal, kind of pyramid stack of logs. And that's a reference to in the book when he makes a smoke signal. So it's not too in-depth. These are just surface level references. And then the left tower is a reference to the Trapper Hut, because at the end of the second book, he does get found by a family of native, I think they're Inuit, a family of native Inuit trappers, fur trappers. So that's supposed to be their Trapper Hut. And there's also those big snowshoes that I made, and he makes snowshoes in the book. So a few references here and there. One thing I did, you'll see, is the custom rocks. They're so versatile. Just changing the colors and placing them on the roofs like that, they look like snow, don't they? Snow and icy kind of build up on the structure. I think it looks good. So now that that's out of the way, if you saw earlier, I was putting those effect pieces like the fire and smoke at the top of the smoking tower thing, and I have not hooked that up to a trigger yet, but I think you'll see when I place these towers in their final location in the park. There's like a bit of coaster track that goes up along the back of it, and it's an interesting background, I'd say. So I'm probably gonna link the flame at the top of the tower to the coaster. That'll be cool, right? I don't know. I still, like, I know for a fact I want to put these here, but I'm not, I don't know if I'm the biggest fan on the placement overall. But there's no changing it, so I might as well just become a fan, because I'm not changing it. The cues are in there. I themed it very heavily, so much that it would be a pain to move. So the cue is gonna go there, and I'll just have to show you in the live section. But there's just a lot of sight lines to consider when placing something like this, and I definitely know for in the future, when I work on the next big themed area, I'm gonna like place all the paths and all the queues, all the rides, well before I do like anything else, because it's just way too much stuff to try and work in. But at the same time, I think what makes my park look so unique is the fact that I build it in this way where I have these very unique kind of geographical constraints, and then building your park around those and trying to make those things fit within those constraints, that makes things develop in a very organic way, which makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what makes my parks look pretty unique. But then sometimes you run into this issue where there's just not a lot of space, and you're very confined into a certain area and can't do much, and it requires a lot of creativity to kind of work your way around it. So is it worth it to have less space so that you have to be creative with the space usage, but then that just takes so much more time and effort because you have to think about everything? So you'll see right here me trying to move the road over, and then I can't move it too far because the supports are there, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, this is so... I think I took a break after this or something because I was just trying to squeeze everything in and it was just a mess. So I ended up deleting those supports and rebuilding them later. They look a lot better now, so I'm not upset about that at all. It was a net positive. This area as a whole is just very dense theming. I don't know, it's something new because everything else in the park thus far has been pretty sprawling, I'd say. Except maybe the main street area that we built last episode. That one's pretty condensed, but everything else has been sprawling theming, so another condensed area is pretty nice. Add variety and stuff. This airplane right here, I was a bit kind of on the fence about it because it's very on theme for the book, right? There's an airplane that goes down, and that's how he ends up in the wilderness in the first place. But if you remember the story, I think it was in episode 5 now, so 2 episodes ago, this area of the park is supposed to be like a not prehistoric, like an ancient Earth, like an early Earth before civilizations, right? It's just old Earth, right? Nomadic humans and whatnot. That's what this whole area is supposed to be. And then throwing in something like an airplane kind of just breaks that entirely, right? It's a couple thousand years before its time. It's like in Civ if you get airplanes in like 1300 BC. It's like, what? Does anyone play Civ? I love Civ. But back to the park. So putting the airplane here, it was kind of like an artistic liberty, I guess, because it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. And to combat that, I tried to hide it from most angles. So only the people in this area of the park should see the plane. And if you can see it from other areas, it's not like the whole plane, so you can't just be like, oh my god, is that an airplane? You'll just see like pieces of metal or something, and you'll just kind of ignore it subconsciously, hopefully, anyway. So yeah, the whole thing with this airplane First of all, it's a very beautiful model. I'll show you more in depth in the live section because it looks very good, and I'll shout out the creator and put the code in the description. So if you want to check out this airplane, I know this creator has a bunch of other models that are pretty good. So expect a lot of codes in the description in this episode because I did use a lot of workshop items. I'm not that creative at using the small pieces for things. And what's more impressive is that airplane is like peep scale. Like it's pretty good. So this queue area, it's a bit short, I will say. Like if you go to any large scale park, something of this magnitude, the queue being this short is actually kind of silly. But I didn't have enough space. That's the only reason it's this small. And I could mess with the road and stuff, but I already made the sight lines for the road. It was too much, man. That's why the next area is going to be planned to a T with Photoshop or something, and other planning in the game. I'm just gonna plan that out way better because this one is a bit, I don't even know, man. I'm not gonna show quite all of the theming on this because it'd take a very long time, but I'm gonna make up for that with a very long live section because there's a lot of stuff to go over. And dude, again, I thought I would have this area done in this episode, but this time and time again, it just keeps proving that I work slow. Or probably more accurately, this stuff takes a lot of time. But I'd rather have a good product than rush out something that's crappy. And I'm not gonna lie, there's like a lot of time-lapse footage, but I'd run out of things to say. So rather than stretch it on with boring, uninspired commentary, I'm just gonna skip to the live section where it's gonna be a lot more interesting and I'll know what to talk about because there'll be like specific things I want to show off. So yeah, I think it's live section time. Okay, welcome back into the park. I don't have any people in this time, but that's okay because still got a lot to show. Here we are in the Tawaskara Plaza, and you'll notice the skyline's a bit different. I think we'll head over there after we check out the back face of the Aquila's Landing. Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. Getting rid of that station and moving it there and having this area be open was definitely the way to go. Immediately down this corridor, we have a very similar feel to the path up there that I showed off last episode. And this is just a continuation of that village just brought down to the riverside. So first I want to show off this fountain. So you can see it changed a lot since the check-in. I'm pretty proud of it, honestly. It's very, very detailed. As you can see, I purposely left some larger kind of ledges around the building, specifically for these potted plants, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to fit any trees or full-size bushes in this area. So I had to sneak in greenery in any way I could. So that's these potted plants as well as the moss decals. And honestly, the moss decals are like a very, very hard carry for this whole area. These are the fountain pieces I made, and these are just a water block and an effect piece. And then I threw the moss decals everywhere, kind of discolored in different colors just for different effects, like slightly green for actual moss, just pure brown to make it look like the stone is wet, right? And then there's also like the lighter brown mixed in to look like a bit of grunge or buildup or anything. So there's 3 different textures of the moss that I included just for variety to make it look very lived in, I guess. And I think that carries this whole area, not gonna lie. Here's everything with the sounds and the water running. Like I said in the previous check-in, it's not very colonial cabin style. This is more like Spanish or maybe a little Italian actually for this fountain. But it makes sense. It's the Aquila's Landing. That's kind of Spanish. So slight influence in the architectural style. Again, this is like a fountain, but there's also like the drainage basin type thing that flows through here. And it doesn't go into the river. It instead should flow into this pond here. Moving on, the next building I'll show is the station. Black Rock Station is finally done. This was a mixture between this fountain style of architecture, the lodge cabins, as well as the lean-to with the straw or thatch roofing. So it's got a mix of everything, trying to make it tie into the whole area. You'll see hints of like everything. So you see the thatch roof there, and there you'll see the big gable there, mirrored right there, and then you'll see the big stone arches and walls mirrored right here. So it's all the key elements from each style kind of coming together into this one building, and I'm probably the most proud of this building out of everything, even though this one's significantly more interesting. So this lift here, not gonna lie, I took the idea from Silverette's new video. Like, I spent all this time on like elevators and stuff and figuring out ways to make everything handicap accessible with the extreme height variations and stuff. And I was gonna make like a tower here for an elevator, like a proper elevator tower. And then I saw his video and I was like, okay, I forgot these exist. That's kind of embarrassing, but yeah. the external lift elevator thing. This is just like a window piece. I just blocked the glass out on each side just to give it that texture. These are just like clutter technical pieces. And then I try to make this look like it can fold down, so I added the mini coaster support. Right, the coaster support 2 meter, and just shrunk it down to look like the hinges on there too. And I think it kind of looks believable, especially with the dynamic pose like that. And this lift, it just goes straight up into the station here, which is pretty empty, and it's supposed to be like that for safety reasons, so I didn't detail it too much up here, just lighting. But moving down, I think at this point when I made this building, I kind of mastered this style of architecture, right? That's just really interesting to look at. The rounded support pillars, you see how it kind of tapers at the top. I really like that. I haven't done that on any of the other ones. There's a lot of lighting. I'll show it off at nighttime later, obviously, but yeah, the landscaping, just the height variations, the angles, I'm really proud of this area. This is the exit, actually, so when people get off the lift, they come out here, which is pretty cool. I like the whole interior. And yeah, we'll come back to this way. We'll go in a loop. But here's the outside. There's some covered seating. And then here's everything I showed you before, just now with a bunch of added landscaping and the potted plants, the hanging plants, and the wires above. Oh, I kind of forgot to put string lighting across. Oops. I added the drainage things all the way down from this like incline right here, and it goes around the pool as well. There's the path up to the Aquila's Landing. It's pretty much the same as when I showed you before, but the views are pretty cool. Especially if we head here. You can see down at the fountain. A really great view from here. Back down here, you might be wondering, how do you get onto the station? Where's the queue? And that is along here. So I changed the name, Icebox Float Shop now, instead of Icebox Essentials. I think it sounds better this way. There's just a lot more seating around here, and it feels a lot more cozy, I think, especially along this side of the cliff face. Now it's like complete. I really enjoy the look here. But where's the entrance to the ski lift? It's across this bridge, and I don't think this is working right now. Yeah, because I moved the path and it updated it, and that's why the bridge is up there. But I guess we'll just pretend like the bridge is working. I'll get it fixed once I know for sure that I'm done messing with the path, because every time I move it, it breaks this bridge, and then I have to do the connection thing, and it's all messed up. So pretend we walked across the bridge, and the entrance is here. Now I could do with making a sign for the ski lift here, actually, because it's just a path through the field right now. But heading through, it's not too shaded. Yeah, here's the station, and immediately out of the station it curves to the right to head off into the next area. Here's the queue. It goes up along, and these are the invisible paths again. I love the invisible paths. You can get a good view from up here. And this brings you up along this side of the station. Here's a guest statue for the scale, so you can see it's pretty large up here. And then this just goes right into the station, right? And then here's the exit. So let's say someone, oh, there's the lift. There's a lift gate, by the way. So let's say someone from a different area of the park gets off at this station. The exit here, right alongside the coaster. Pretty good view. And then this brings you down into this interior, and it's pretty bland in here. I didn't put too much effort into it. And then here's your big reveal of Akila's Landing, which I love this view. And going around this side, you'll see I added another totem pole type thing. I don't know, I needed something there because it was just very bland, and you could see the cable car mechanism. So yeah, let's move on. Here's the new developments in Eagle's Landing. So one of the first things you'll notice actually is that the path goes downwards instead of up. And I did that for the sightline of being down there and being able to see the big airtime hill back here. So that's all been lowered. I think it makes a huge difference. Don't mind this. So here's the entrance plaza for our drop towers. And you can see the first thing you'll see is the plane. It's crashed, and then I've just messed with the propellers so they have different oscillation or rotating movements to look like they're all malfunctioning and whatnot. So I like that. Also the added smoke is an interesting touch. Here's another test seat. This one I did not make. It is made by Patman1209. So that's who made this, as well as that warning sign. And there's another warning sign later on that I'll show you. And I'll link all of these in the description. Here we have our lockers, same as before, as well as the ride wait time and the height stick. And I'm waiting for the train to come around, because there's an interaction that I want to show. So as the train comes up, the fire goes off. And it's just whenever the train goes over that little airtime part. So yeah, two sides of the drop tower. There's Tundra and Frontier. We'll do Frontier first since it's chronologically the first book, right? So we head down. Another warning sign, headed to the queue. And there's two vastly different queues, even though they're in the same area. So one of the first skills he gets is he makes a bow and arrow, and he learns archery, right? So I have some arrows to represent that. Also, he has a moose encounter, so I put this moose here. It's kind of scary looking. Honestly, I downloaded this from the workshop. Surprisingly, I found a moose on the workshop, so shout out to you, whoever made that. And then I just swapped out the antlers for the driftwood pieces because I like this look better. The more you look at it, the less like a moose it looks, so just don't look at it too long. Also in the story, he has this hatchet, and this is a reference to the part in the book where he like throws the hatchet and then it scrapes against like a piece of flint or something, and that causes a spark, and then he's like, oh, I can create fire now. So this is a reference to that part of the book. And then we head up into the drop tower area. So the queue's pretty short, but I don't think that'll be a problem in this game. Here's storage cubbies. I really like the added junk pieces they let us put around, so it really makes things feel lived in. Dual drop towers, both connected up to look like one platform. And then head to the exit. Here's a platform that's covered right underneath the airplane. There's some seating, and you can watch the coaster or look down at the other queue, or this queue, or watch that coaster. And now we're back. And then this serves as the accessibility entrance, so it's just a small ramp up to the ride. And now we're back at the front. So I think we'll do the Tundra queue at nighttime just so I can showcase everything. Alright, well it is nighttime now. And look at those towers. The bright blue and then the dark burnt orange. I think they contrast very well. And you'll see the blue spotlights, the orange spotlights, and this whole area just looks very interesting with Frontier on this side and Tundra. So let's go through the Tundra queue. So in this book, he's a lot more experienced with survival, so he has a better camp this time. And these are the snowshoes he creates, although they're massive. And then heading here, you have like a simulated kind of tundra area with the coaster going by. I really like the feel here, just to show it. These are the water pieces with the cracked decals to look like ice. I think Taggy did something like this recently with his new video, but I didn't mean to copy him or anything. But he hooked the cracks up to like animatronics to make them look like it's like actually cracking in front of you, which is very interesting. Something I could never come up with on it, honestly. And then I have these like kind of vents to act like that's where all this snow particles and stuff is coming from. But continuing down here, we have another switchback, and this brings us back into the ice cave. And this is just another water piece, and I placed it vertically to look like a wall of ice, and I thought it was cool. So you can see into the other queue from this one. Here's the other warning sign I was talking about, made by the same guy. So I'll link this in the description. But having the coaster come right up against you like that, it looks very cool. And then again, as we go up, it just looks even better. So you can see more. Definitely getting Velocicoaster vibes here, which is a good sign. So yeah, another warning sign, and then here we have another camp. And a raft. The raft he makes at the end of the first book. And then we have the ride tower. We've already seen this area. And then back towards the exit. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the way the queue and all the theming turned out, especially considering how small of a space this was. This is a pretty small space. I was able to fit all this stuff in. Here's what this side of the tunnel looks like from the coaster point of view. So now, instead of just fencing like this side, it's got a rock face and it looks a lot more interesting. I also changed the colors of the lights in the tunnel, so now it's blue for the Arctic area, and as it moves away, it gradually, you know, becomes the normal orangish tint. And something you'll notice here is that I changed the look of the supports. So let me go to daytime real quick. So for those of you, so if you didn't know, a lot of the supports here were built before they added the coaster support pieces. So like way when the game first came out. If you look at this support right here, this is just the cylinder piece. Like the art shapes, right? That's just the art shape. And then the new supports are all made with the coaster support shapes. And as a result, you can see the difference in materials and the way the light reflects off of them. These are like jet black, they don't have much reflection. And then these kind of look gray almost. But I think they match with the coaster a lot more than that. So for that reason, I changed the supports. I made a very interesting looking structure, something more interesting than how it was looking, and that's because it's a backdrop for this area. And that got me thinking, I should probably do these type of supports for the rest. So I didn't have time to do it this time, but next week or whenever the next video comes, these supports will all be updated to match this style. And I took another artistic liberty here in theming the supports. If they were gonna actually stylize supports, it would probably be closer to something like this rather than that, right? That's just too much. That's just too much. But this is something that's like believable. It's like a step further than the stylized supports on Cheetah Hunt, if you guys have seen those. It's like this piece is just attached on with the flange, so I think that makes them look pretty interesting. This whole plaza with those type of supports will look very good, and the area is coming together. I'm like 99% sure we'll get the rest of this park, or the rest of this area done in the next episode. Oh, also on this path I added a kind of street performance here, so that we have a piano and the pirate animatronic, and it's playing the ragtime thing. I don't think the ragtime is a good music choice, but it's the only in-game piece that is solely piano. So maybe I'll add my own music, or maybe we just keep it like that. So you guys can have music here when I release the park without having to download a bunch of files and stuff. But anyway, making our way down, you'll see the lighting in the fountain area as well as the station. I really like the look of the orange light on the front of the fish statue with the green background lighting. It really makes it stand out. Another thing, these the flowing rapids, this is one of Taggy's tips or whatever. Those are just, where is it? These pieces, the rotating things, and then you just make them spin, and then you add the foam pieces to the moss pieces to make them look like rolling water. So that's how I achieved the look in this fountain. And then I just dressed it up with the particle pieces, with the water flowing effect pieces. So this is the flow. It's kind of bouncing off the rocks and stuff. And then added the foam piece here, and here. Oh, also there. And then that really sells the look. Some clutter pieces. You'll see these little bronze pieces. They're supposed to be like pennies or coins, right? People throw coins in the fountain. And that's what these are, even though they're apples. They're supposed to look like piles of pennies and stuff, or coins that people throw into the fountain. And then there's a bunch up here too, just for that little bit of detail. So moving down, I really like the look of this station with the oranges and the greens. It looks very surreal. And then the coaster in the background. Oh, I guess we're swimming now. The coaster in the background. It's just a really good view. And then the smaller cabins that they change color as you go down. I really enjoy these. The Icebox Float Shop. I also added some life preservers here by the Icebox. So yeah, this area is wrapping up. One more solid episode should do the trick. So here's the look of the Great Plains area. And now that we've added a queue through it, it's literally only this part, but I want to use as much of this as I can without ruining the aesthetic of it looking like a plains area. But yeah, that's just something for the future. Did we get it? I think that's pretty much it, guys. So that's pretty much gonna do it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe so you can check out the next one. And yeah, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And I really appreciated all the birthday wishes. That was nice to see. Also, let me know if you've heard about this book series. I'm kind of curious to know what people think. So that's the Hatchet series by Gary Paulson. Yeah, that's gonna do it for me. So see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.